The galaxy was vast, but it wasn't free. For centuries, the Zeridian Empire had ruled over countless planets and species with an iron fist. Their massive starships patrolled every corner of known space, ensuring that no one dared to challenge their authority. Earth, once a thriving hub of innovation and exploration, now existed under the shadow of this empire. Humanity's dreams of reaching further into the stars had been crushed long ago, replaced by a fragile peace built on submission. On Earth, life went on as usual for most people. They worked, they laughed, and they tried to forget about the oppressive force watching over them. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered. People whispered about freedom, about standing up against the Empire, though few believed such a thing was possible. After all, how could a small planet like Earth ever hope to defeat the mighty Zeridian Empire? In New Chicago, a bustling city filled with towering skyscrapers and crowded streets, 12-year-old Ethan Parker lived a simple life. He loved playing outside, chasing after his friends, and dreaming of adventures among the stars. His parents often warned him not to wander too far from home, especially near the outskirts of the city where the atmosphere grew quieter and emptier. But Ethan was curious, always eager to explore new places. That curiosity would soon change everything. It was a warm afternoon when Ethan decided to venture beyond the usual boundaries of his neighborhood. With a backpack slung over his shoulder and a toy spaceship clutched in his hand, he made his way toward the edge of the city. The air there felt different, less polluted, more open. He imagined himself as a brave explorer discovering uncharted territory, just like the heroes in the stories he loved to read. Unbeknownst to Ethan, danger loomed nearby. High above the ground, a sleek Imperial patrol ship hovered silently. Its crew had detected movement in what they considered a restricted zone, a designation unknown to most civilians. To the Zeridians, rules were absolute, and violations were met with swift punishment. No warnings, no exceptions. As Ethan played, completely unaware of the looming threat, the patrol ship descended rapidly. The sound of its engines startled him, and he turned around to see the massive vessel hovering just meters away. Fear gripped him as several armored soldiers emerged from the craft, their weapons drawn. One of them shouted something in a language Ethan didn't understand, but the tone left no room for confusion. He was in trouble. Ethan froze, unsure of what to do. Should he run? Should he try to explain that he hadn't meant any harm? Before he could decide, one of the soldiers raised his weapon and fired. A bright flash of energy erupted, striking Ethan before anyone could react. He collapsed instantly, his small body lying motionless on the ground. The soldiers didn't linger. Without a second glance, they returned to their ship and ascended, back into the sky, leaving behind only silence and devastation. It wasn't until minutes later that a passerby discovered Ethan's lifeless form. Shocked and horrified, the witness immediately called for help, capturing the scene on their personal device. Within hours, footage of the incident spread across social media, igniting outrage across the globe. News outlets picked up the story almost instantly. Journalists scrambled to piece together the details, while citizens demanded answers. Who were these soldiers? Why had they attacked a child? And why did the Empire claim this area as restricted when it was so close to a populated city? The questions poured in, but the Empire offered no explanation. Instead, official statements dismissed the event as an unfortunate accident caused by human carelessness. Among those deeply affected by Ethan's death were Daniel Harper and Laura Mitchell. Daniel, a former military officer, had spent years advocating for peace between humanity and the Empire. He believed that violence only bred more violence and that diplomacy was the key to survival. But even he couldn't ignore the injustice of what had happened. Watching the video of Ethan's final moments filled him with anger and sorrow. Laura, on the other hand, was a journalist known for her relentless pursuit of truth. She had covered countless stories exposing corruption and abuse within both Earth's governments and the Empire's regime. When she saw the footage of Ethan's death, she knew this was bigger than anything she had reported before. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a symbol of everything wrong with the current system. Together, Daniel and Laura became voices of resistance. They attended protests, spoke at rallies, and used their platforms to demand justice. Thousands of people joined them, flooding the streets of major cities with signs bearing Ethan's name. Never again became their rallying cry, a promise to fight for a better future. As public pressure mounted, world leaders convened an emergency summit. For days, debates raged about how to respond to the Empire's actions. Some argued for restraint, fearing retaliation if Earth pushed back too hard. Others insisted that enough was enough, that humanity needed to stand up and defend itself. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Earth would declare war on the Ziridian Empire. The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. No one had expected humanity to take such a bold step. The Empire viewed Earth as insignificant, a minor annoyance compared to the countless worlds under its control. Yet here was a planet willing to risk annihilation rather than accept oppression any longer. Daniel struggled with the weight of the decision. He had always believed in finding peaceful solutions, but he couldn't deny the righteousness of the cause. If Earth did nothing, the Empire would continue treating humans as expendable. If they fought, there was a chance, however slim, to reclaim their dignity and freedom. Laura threw herself into documenting the growing movement. She interviewed grieving families, passionate activists, and determined soldiers preparing for battle. Her articles painted a vivid picture of a world united in grief and purpose. Through her words, Ethan's story reached millions, inspiring them to join the fight. Preparations for war began in earnest. Factories once dedicated to producing consumer goods shifted focus to building weapons and starships. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new technologies capable of rivaling the Empire's advanced arsenal. Volunteers signed up by the thousands, ready to risk their lives for the cause. Yet amidst the fervor, doubts lingered. Could humanity truly win against an enemy so powerful? The Empire's fleet dwarfed Earth's meager forces, and its resources were virtually limitless. Even with the entire planet working together, victory seemed impossible. Still, hope burned brightly in the hearts of many. Ethan's death had ignited something that couldn't be extinguished, a determination to prove that humanity was worth fighting for. As Daniel looked out over the crowds gathering in support of the war effort, he felt a glimmer of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull off the impossible. And so, Earth braced itself for the battles ahead. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of billions. For better or worse, humanity had chosen to rise up, and nothing would ever be the same again. The declaration of war sent shockwaves through Earth. People from all walks of life came together, united by a shared sense of purpose. Factories that once produced cars and electronics were transformed into shipyards and weapon plants. Scientists worked tirelessly in labs, pushing the boundaries of technology to create tools that could rival the Empire's advanced arsenal. Streets buzzed with activity as volunteers signed up for military training, eager to contribute to the fight. Daniel Harper found himself at the center of it all. Though he had spent years advocating for peace, he couldn't stand idly by while his planet prepared for war. His experience as a former military officer made him a valuable asset, and soon he was approached by Commander Rachel Monroe, a seasoned leader known for her sharp mind and unyielding determination. Together they began assembling a coalition of volunteers, engineers, and strategists to prepare for the battles ahead. Rachel was different from anyone Daniel had ever worked with. She was pragmatic and focused, always thinking several steps ahead. While Daniel often hesitated, weighing the moral implications of their actions, Rachel pushed forward without hesitation. Their partnership wasn't always smooth. There were disagreements and heated debates, but they respected each other's strengths. Daniel's idealism balanced Rachel's realism, creating a dynamic that proved essential as they planned humanity's defense. Meanwhile, Laura Mitchell continued her work as a journalist, traveling across Earth to document the growing resistance. Her articles captured the raw emotions of a planet on the brink of war. She interviewed soldiers preparing for battle, families saying goodbye to loved ones, and scientists racing against time to develop new technologies. Through her words, she reminded people why they were fighting. not just for revenge, but for a future where freedom and justice could thrive. One of the most inspiring stories Laura encountered was that of Alex Bennett, a young recruit who had joined the military after losing his older brother to Imperial oppression years earlier. Alex was determined to make a difference, even if it meant risking his life. During a training exercise, he saved an entire squad from a simulated ambush, earning the respect of his peers and superiors alike. Laura wrote about Alex's bravery, and his story became a symbol of hope for millions. As preparations intensified, so did the Empire's response. The Zeridians weren't used to being challenged, especially by a species they considered inferior. Envoys arrived on Earth delivering ultimatums and threats. They warned that any act of aggression would result in catastrophic consequences. Cities would be destroyed, populations wiped out. But humanity refused to back down. Leaders stood firm, knowing that surrender was no longer an option. Behind closed doors, Daniel and Rachel devised a daring plan. They knew Earth's forces were outnumbered and outgunned, but they also knew the Empire had weaknesses. One of those weaknesses was a massive supply depot orbiting Mars. This depot served as a crucial hub for resupplying Imperial ships patrolling the Sol system. If they could destroy it, they would cripple the Empire's ability to wage war in the region. The plan was risky. The depot was heavily guarded, and getting close enough to launch an attack would require stealth and precision. Daniel suggested using cloaking technology, a relatively new invention developed by Earth scientists, to sneak past the Empire's defenses. Rachel agreed, though she insisted on leading the mission herself. "If we're going to pull this off," she said, "we need someone who can think on their feet." Preparations for the attack took weeks. Engineers worked around the clock to outfit a small fleet of ships with cloaking devices. Pilots trained rigorously, learning how to navigate undetected through enemy territory. Supplies were gathered and contingency plans were drawn up in case something went wrong. Everyone involved understood the stakes. Failure would mean disaster, not just for the mission, but for Earth's chances of survival. While the military prepared, civilians contributed in their own ways. Farmers donated food to feed the troops, while artists painted murals depicting scenes of hope and resilience. Children wrote letters to soldiers, thanking them for their bravery. Even those too old or frail to fight found ways to help, whether by sewing uniforms or organizing fundraisers. The sense of unity was palpable, a reminder that humanity was stronger together. Laura traveled to the front lines to cover the final stages of preparation. She wanted to capture the spirit of the men and women who were about to risk everything. One evening, she sat with a group of pilots gathered around a campfire. They laughed and joked, trying to ease the tension, but beneath the surface, fear lingered. These were ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, facing an enemy far more powerful than themselves. Among the pilots was Sarah Lewis, a single mother who had left her young daughter behind to join the fight. When Laura asked her why she had volunteered, Sarah simply said, "I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she doesn't have to live in fear." Her words resonated deeply, echoing the sentiments of countless others who had chosen to stand up against the Empire. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The cloaked fleet launched under the cover of darkness, slipping silently through space toward the Martian depot. Tension filled the air as the ships approached their target. Every crew member knew that one mistake could expose them to the Empire's forces. For hours, they drifted closer, holding their breaths as alarms blared faintly in the distance. When they reached optimal range, Rachel gave the order to strike. Plasma cannons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of energy that tore through the depot's defenses. Explosions lit up the void of space as chunks of debris tumbled into the void. The attack was swift and devastating, catching the Empire completely off guard. Within minutes, the depot was reduced to rubble, its supplies obliterated. But the victory came at a cost. Imperial reinforcements arrived faster than expected, forcing the human fleet to retreat. Several ships were lost in the chaos, and many lives were sacrificed to ensure the mission's success. As the survivors limped back to Earth, they carried with them both pride and grief. They had struck a blow against the Empire, but the war was far from over. Back on Earth, news of the successful attack spread quickly. Celebrations erupted in cities and towns with people cheering and waving flags. Yet amid the jubilation, there was also mourning. Families mourned the loss of loved ones, and soldiers reflected on the sacrifices made during the mission. It was a bittersweet moment, a reminder that every step forward came at a price. For Daniel and Rachel, the victory was both a triumph and a challenge. They knew the Empire wouldn't take the destruction of its depot lightly. Retaliation was inevitable, and when it came, it would be brutal. Already reports were coming in of Imperial fleets amassing near Earth's borders. The next phase of the war would test humanity's resolve like never before. Despite the looming threat, hope remained alive. The success of the Martian mission proved that humanity could fight back, even against overwhelming odds. It showed that courage and ingenuity could level the playing field, if only for a moment. And it reminded everyone why they had chosen to rise up in the first place, to protect their planet, their families, and their future. As Earth braced for the Empire's counterattack, Daniel and Rachel turned their attention to the next stage of the war. They knew they couldn't rely on bold strikes alone. They needed a strategy that combined innovation, adaptability, and sheer determination. With the support of millions, they prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy watched closely as humanity took its stand. For centuries, Earth had been seen as weak and insignificant, but now it had become something else entirely, a beacon of defiance, a testament to the power of unity and resilience. The war was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. The Empire's response was swift and merciless. Within days of the Martian depot's destruction, Imperial fleets descended upon Earth with terrifying force. Cities crumbled under relentless bombardments, their once bustling streets reduced to smoldering ruins. Skyscrapers toppled like dominoes, and flames consumed entire neighborhoods. The air was thick with smoke and ash, choking those who dared to venture outside. Despite the devastation, humanity refused to surrender. Civilians banded together to care for the wounded and rebuild what had been lost. Makeshift hospitals sprang up in schools and community centers, staffed by doctors, nurses, and volunteers working around the clock. Neighbors helped neighbors dig through rubble, searching for survivors or salvaging whatever supplies they could find. Even children pitched in, carrying water and food to those in need. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a refusal to let despair win. Amid the chaos, Daniel Harper and Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to organize Earth's defenses. They knew the Empire's retaliation would be brutal, but nothing could have prepared them for the scale of the assault. Entire regions were left in ruins and millions of lives were lost. Yet even as they mourned the dead, Daniel and Rachel pressed on, determined to turn the tide of the war. One evening, as they reviewed damage reports in a dimly lit command center, Rachel turned to Daniel with grim determination. "We can't keep playing defense," she said. "If we want to survive, we need to hit them where it hurts." Daniel nodded, though his heart ached at the thought of more bloodshed. He understood that survival meant taking risks, no matter how dangerous. Together, they began devising a new plan, one that required courage, sacrifice, and precision. Scientists had been working on a secret project deep beneath the surface of Earth, a prototype superweapon capable of creating localized black holes. The concept was both brilliant and terrifying. When activated, the weapon would generate a gravitational anomaly so powerful that anything caught within its radius would be torn apart. It was untested and risky, but it represented humanity's last chance to level the playing field. The plan was simple yet audacious. Earth's remaining fleet would lure the Empire's flagship, the Invincible Dawn, into a trap near Jupiter. The massive dreadnought served as the Empire's command center, directing operations across the galaxy. If they could destroy it, the Empire's forces would lose cohesion, giving Earth a fighting chance. To execute the plan, Daniel volunteered to lead a squadron of decoy ships tasked with drawing the enemy fleet into position. It was a suicide mission, and he knew it. But someone had to do it, and he couldn't ask others to take such a risk without being willing to do so himself. Rachel argued against his decision, insisting that Earth needed his leadership, but Daniel wouldn't budge. "If this is going to work," he said, "we need someone who knows how to buy time." As preparations for the mission continued, Laura Mitchell traveled to the front lines to document the final push. She wanted to capture the stories of the brave men and women who were about to face almost certain death. Her articles had become a source of inspiration for millions, reminding people of the sacrifices being made in the name of freedom. Among the soldiers she interviewed was Alex Bennett, the young recruit whose bravery had already earned him recognition. Now a seasoned pilot, Alex was assigned to Daniel's squadron. When Laura asked him how he felt about the mission, he simply shrugged. "I signed up knowing I might not make it back," he said. "But if we win, it'll be worth it." The night before the attack, Daniel gathered his team for a final briefing. They sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Some wrote letters to loved ones, while others stared blankly at the walls. There was no denying the fear that gripped them all, but there was also resolve. These were ordinary people, farmers, teachers, engineers, who had chosen to stand up against an empire that saw them as insignificant. And now, they were ready to give everything for their planet. When the morning came, the fleet launched under the cover of darkness. The decoy ships moved first, their engines blazing as they approached the Empire's blockade near Jupiter. As expected, the invincible Dawn responded immediately, deploying squadrons of fighters to intercept the intruders. The battle began almost instantly, with plasma bolts streaking through space like fireworks. Daniel's squadron fought valiantly, weaving through enemy fire and launching counterattacks to keep the Empire's forces occupied. Every second counted, and they knew it. Back at the command ship, Rachel monitored the situation closely, waiting for the perfect moment to activate the superweapon. Her hands trembled as she gripped the controls, knowing that countless lives depended on her timing. Meanwhile, Earth's main fleet positioned itself out of sight, ready to spring the trap. Pilots exchanged nervous glances, their hearts pounding, as they awaited the signal. Among them was Sarah Lewis, the single mother who had left her daughter behind to join the fight. She clenched her fists tightly, repeating a silent prayer for strength. As the battle raged, Daniel's squadron suffered heavy losses. Ships exploded one by one, their crews perishing in fiery bursts. Still, they held their ground, buying precious time for the rest of the fleet. Alex flew circles around enemy fighters, his movements precise and calculated. He managed to take down several Imperial vessels before his own ship sustained critical damage. Sparks flew inside his cockpit as alarms blared, warning him of imminent failure. With gritted teeth, he ejected just moments before his ship disintegrated. Finally, the moment arrived. Rachel gave the order to activate the superweapon. A swirling vortex erupted in space, its gravitational pull growing stronger with each passing second. The invincible Dawn, along with much of the Imperial fleet, was caught in its grasp. Panic spread among the Empire's forces as their ships were torn apart, sucked into the void like dust in a storm. The sight was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. From the safety of their hidden positions, Earth's pilots watched as the Empire's flagship disappeared into the abyss. Cheers erupted aboard the command ship, but Rachel remained focused. She knew the battle wasn't over yet. Surviving Imperial ships scrambled to retreat, firing wildly in desperation. Earth's fleet pursued them, picking off stragglers and ensuring the enemy wouldn't regroup anytime soon. When the dust settled, the outcome was clear. Humanity had won a decisive victory, but it came at a heavy cost. Dozens of ships had been lost and hundreds of lives sacrificed. Daniel's squadron had been nearly wiped out, with only a handful of survivors returning to Earth. Alex was among them, battered and bruised but alive. He limped off his escape pod and collapsed into the arms of medics, tears streaming down his face as he thought of his fallen comrades. Back on Earth, celebrations broke out despite the losses. People poured into the streets waving flags and chanting slogans of defiance. For the first time in months, hope flickered brightly in their hearts. The destruction of the invincible Dawn proved that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the Empire and win. Laura documented every moment, capturing the joy and sorrow that followed the battle. She spoke with grieving families and triumphant soldiers, weaving their stories into a tapestry of resilience. Her words reminded everyone that the fight wasn't just about revenge, it was about building a better future. For Daniel and Rachel, the victory brought mixed emotions. They were proud of what they had accomplished, but they couldn't forget the price paid to achieve it. They visited memorials erected for the fallen, paying their respects and vowing never to let their sacrifices be forgotten. The Empire, meanwhile, reeled from the loss of its flagship. Realizing they had underestimated humanity's determination, Zeridian leaders agreed to negotiate a ceasefire. Terms were harsh. The Empire would withdraw from human territories, dismantle its military presence in the Sol system, and pay reparations for the damage caused. It was a humiliating defeat, but one they couldn't afford to ignore. As peace talks began, Earth took stock of the changes wrought by the war. Cities lay in ruins, and scars ran deep. Yet amid the wreckage, something remarkable had emerged: unity. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and risen stronger than ever before. The dream of freedom, once thought impossible, now seemed within reach. Though the road ahead would be long and difficult, there was reason to believe in a brighter future. Ethan Parker's name became synonymous with courage and resilience, reminder of why the fight had begun. And as people looked to the stars, they did so not with fear but with hope, for a world where justice and freedom could prevail. The ceasefire marked the beginning of a fragile peace, but it was far from perfect. Earth's cities lay in ruins, their streets still littered with debris and ash. Billions of lives had been upended, and the scars of war ran deep. Yet, despite the devastation, humanity refused to give up. The victory over the Zeridian Empire had proven something important, that even the smallest and weakest could stand against overwhelming odds if they were united. Daniel Harper walked through what remained of New Chicago, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. The city he had once called home was barely recognizable. Buildings stood like skeletons, their windows shattered and walls charred black. Families huddled together in makeshift shelters, trying to rebuild their lives piece by piece. Children played among the wreckage, laughing as if unaware of the weight of what had happened. Their laughter was bittersweet. It reminded Daniel of Ethan Parker, the boy whose death had sparked this entire conflict. As he passed a group of volunteers clearing rubble, Daniel stopped to help. He didn't say much. There was no need for order. Everyone understood the importance of rebuilding, not just the physical structures, but the spirit of the planet itself. People worked side by side, strangers becoming friends as they shared meals and stories. There was a sense of purpose now, a collective determination to create something better from the ashes. Rachel Monroe spent her days coordinating relief efforts. She had taken charge of distributing food, medicine, and supplies to areas hardest hit by the war. Her leadership style hadn't changed. She was still direct and unyielding, but those who worked with her saw a softer side too. Late at night, when the work was done, she would sit quietly, staring at maps of the galaxy. Sometimes she wondered if they had truly won or simply delayed the inevitable. The Empire might have retreated for now, but its power was vast and its pride wounded. Would they come back stronger? Only time would tell. Laura Mitchell continued documenting the aftermath of the war. Her articles focused not on destruction, but on hope. She wrote about communities coming together, about farmers planting new crops and teachers reopening schools. She interviewed survivors, capturing their resilience and determination. One story stood out: a young girl named Lily who had lost both parents during the bombardments. Despite her grief, Lily helped care for younger children in her neighborhood, organizing games and songs to keep spirits high. Laura's article about Lily touched millions, inspiring others to find strength in the face of loss. Among the heroes celebrated in Laura's reports was Alex Bennett. Though injured during the final battle, Alex had returned to active duty as soon as he recovered. His bravery had earned him a promotion, and he now led a squadron tasked with patrolling Earth's borders. When Laura asked him how he felt about his new role, Alex smiled faintly. "I'm just doing my part," he said. "We fought hard to win our freedom. Now we have to protect it." Sarah Lewis also became a symbol of hope. After months away from her daughter, she finally returned home limping but alive. The reunion was emotional. Tears streamed down their faces as they embraced. Sarah promised never to leave again, vowing to focus on raising her child rather than fighting wars. Still, she remained proud of her service, knowing she had contributed to a cause greater than herself. As weeks turned into months, Earth began to heal. Reconstruction projects sprang up everywhere, funded by reparations paid by the Empire. Factories reopened, producing materials needed to rebuild homes and infrastructure. Scientists shifted their focus from weapons to innovations that could improve daily life. Clean energy sources, advanced medical treatments, and sustainable farming techniques. Humanity was determined not to waste the second chance it had been given. Monuments were erected in memory of those who had fallen. In New Chicago, a statue of Ethan Parker was unveiled in the central square. It depicted him standing tall, holding his toy spaceship aloft, as if reaching for the stars. Inscribed below were the words, "For freedom, for justice, for all." Thousands gathered for the ceremony, including Daniel and Laura. As they stood before the monument, tears welled in their eyes. They knew Ethan's death had not been in vain. It had ignited a movement that changed the course of history. Despite the progress, tensions lingered. Not everyone trusted the Empire's promise to withdraw. Some feared another attack, while others worried about internal divisions. Earth's leaders worked tirelessly to maintain unity, emphasizing the importance of cooperation. They organized global forums where people could voice their concerns and share ideas for the future. Slowly but surely, trust began to grow, not just between nations but among individuals. One evening, Daniel and Rachel met at a small cafe near the edge of the city. It was one of the few places untouched by the war, its cozy interior offering a rare moment of calm. Over steaming cups of coffee, they reflected on everything that had happened. "Do you think we'll ever really be free?" Daniel asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Rachel stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "Freedom isn't something you achieve once and then forget about," she replied. "It's something you fight for every day. We've taken the first step, but there's still a long road ahead." Her words stayed with Daniel long after they parted ways. He realized she was right. The war may have ended, but the struggle for justice and equality would continue. Humanity had shown it could rise above oppression, but maintaining that progress required constant effort. In the years that followed, Earth transformed. Cities rose anew, blending modern technology with green spaces designed to promote harmony with nature. Education became a top priority, with schools teaching not only science and math but also empathy and ethics. The lessons of the war were woven into curriculums, ensuring future generations understood the cost of freedom and the value of peace. Space exploration experienced a renaissance. With the Empire's grip loosened, humanity ventured further into the galaxy than ever before. Colonies flourished on distant moons, and trade routes opened between neighboring systems. Earth scientists collaborated with alien species willing to coexist peacefully, sharing knowledge and resources. For the first time in centuries, the stars seemed less daunting and more inviting. Ethan Parker's legacy lived on in countless ways. His name adorned schools, parks, and research facilities dedicated to advancing human potential. A scholarship fund was established in his honor, supporting young innovators striving to make the world a better place. His story served as a reminder that even the smallest actions could spark monumental change. As for Daniel and Laura, they found solace in their work. Daniel returned to advocacy, focusing on promoting diplomacy and understanding between species. He traveled across the galaxy, speaking at conferences and meeting with leaders eager to learn from Earth's experience. Laura continued writing, chronicling humanity's journey toward a brighter future. Together, they inspired others to dream bigger and aim higher. Rachel retired from military service, though she remained involved in defense strategy as an advisor. She often visited veterans' centers, listening to their stories and offering guidance to those struggling with the aftermath of war. Her presence was a comfort to many, a reminder that they weren't alone. When asked about the future, Laura summed it up best in one of her final articles. "The galaxy is vast, and humanity is small, but size doesn't determine strength. What matters is heart, the courage to stand up for what's right even when the odds seem impossible. We've proven that we can overcome fear and hatred. Now let us prove that we can build a world worth fighting for." And so, Earth moved forward, carrying the lessons of its past into an uncertain but hopeful future. The scars of war would always remain, but they served as a testament to humanity's resilience. For the first time in centuries, people looked to the stars not with dread, but with dreams of endless possibilities. Years passed since the end of the war, and Earth continued to evolve. The scars of battle remained visible in some places, but they were slowly fading beneath layers of progress and hope. Humanity had entered a new era, an era defined not by fear or oppression, but by ambition and unity. People worked together across borders, cultures, and languages, driven by a shared vision of what the future could be. Daniel Harper found himself busier than ever. After retiring from active leadership roles, he dedicated his time to fostering relationships with alien species, willing to engage in peaceful dialogue. His advocacy for diplomacy earned him respect throughout the galaxy. He traveled frequently, attending summits and conferences where leaders gathered to discuss cooperation and mutual growth. At these events, Daniel often spoke about the lessons learned during Earth's fight against the Ziridian Empire. "War teaches us many things," he would say, "but perhaps the most important lesson is that peace is worth every effort." Laura. Mitchell also remained deeply involved in shaping humanity's narrative. Her articles had shifted focus from documenting the war to exploring its long-term impact on society. She wrote about how communities rebuilt themselves, how schools taught children about justice and equality, and how science advanced in ways previously thought impossible. Her work became a cornerstone of Earth's cultural revival, inspiring people to reflect on their values and aspirations. One of her favorite topics was the growing movement to explore space responsibly. "We've learned our mistakes," she wrote. "Now let's ensure we don't repeat them." Rachel Monroe settled into a quieter life after stepping down from her military role. Though she no longer commanded fleets, her influence endured. She served as an advisor to Earth's Defense Council, helping shape policies designed to protect the planet without resorting to aggression. In her free time, she visited veterans' centers, offering support to those still grappling with the emotional toll of war. Her presence was comforting, a reminder that even the strongest among them needed care and understanding. Alex Bennett had risen through the ranks to become one of Earth's most respected pilots. His squadron patrolled the edges of human territory, ensuring the Empire kept its promise to stay away. Despite his success, Alex remained humble. He often returned home to visit his family, cherishing moments with loved ones who reminded him why he fought so hard. When asked about his future plans, he smiled and said, "I'll keep flying until there's nothing left to guard." Sarah Lewis thrived in her post-war life. Reunited with her daughter, she focused on raising her child while contributing to community projects aimed at healing and rebuilding. Together, they planted trees in parks devastated by bombings, turning barren land into lush green spaces. Sarah's resilience inspired others, proving that even those who had lost everything could find joy again. As Earth flourished, its relationship with neighboring species deepened. Diplomatic missions revealed fascinating insights into alien cultures, sparking exchanges of knowledge and technology. Scientists collaborated on groundbreaking projects, such as developing sustainable energy sources capable of powering entire planets. Artists shared their creations, blending human and extraterrestrial styles to produce works unlike anything seen before. These interactions fostered trust and understanding, laying the foundation for a more interconnected galaxy. One of the most Significant developments came when Earth established its first interstellar embassy. Located on a neutral moon orbiting a distant star, the embassy served as a hub for diplomatic negotiations and cultural exchange. Representatives from dozens of species gathered there, sharing ideas and working toward common goals. Daniel played a key role in its creation, advocating for policies that prioritized inclusivity and fairness. "This isn't just Earth's embassy," he declared at its opening ceremony. "It belongs to everyone who believes in peace." Despite these achievements, challenges persisted. Some factions within the Ziridian Empire refused to accept defeat, plotting quietly to reclaim their dominance. Spies reported whispers of rebellion brewing in remote sectors of the galaxy. While Earth's leaders monitored these threats closely, they chose not to respond with hostility. Instead, they doubled down on efforts to strengthen alliances and promote stability. They hoped that by demonstrating strength through unity, they could deter further conflict. Back on Earth, education became a cornerstone of societal progress. Schools introduced curriculums focused on critical thinking, empathy, and global citizenship. Students learned about Earth's history, the struggles, sacrifices, and triumphs that shaped their world. Teachers emphasized the importance of standing up for justice, encouraging young minds to dream of solutions to problems yet unsolved. Ethan Parker's story was taught in classrooms worldwide, serving as a powerful example of how courage and determination could spark change. Innovations continued to transform daily life. Advances in medicine eradicated diseases once thought incurable, extending lifespans and improving quality of life. Clean energy technologies powered cities without harming the environment, reducing humanity's carbon footprint significantly. Transportation systems connected continents seamlessly, making travel faster and more accessible than ever before. These breakthroughs weren't just practical. They symbolized humanity's ability to adapt and thrive. Cultural celebrations flourished, reflecting the diversity of Earth's population. Festivals brought people together, showcasing traditions from around the globe. Music, art, and cuisine blended harmoniously, creating vibrant expressions of identity and creativity. Communities embraced their differences, recognizing that unity didn't mean uniformity. It meant celebrating what made each person unique. Amid all this progress, Laura penned an article titled, "A New Dawn." In it, she reflected on how far humanity had come since the dark days of war. "We are not the same people we were before," she wrote. "Pain has shaped us, yes, but so has hope. We have chosen to rise above hatred and build something better. And though the road ahead may still hold challenges, we face them with open hearts and unwavering resolve." The article resonated deeply, becoming one of her most widely read pieces. It reminded readers of the sacrifices made and the dreams yet to fulfill. For many, it reinforced their belief in a brighter future. One evening, Daniel stood atop a hill overlooking New Chicago. The city gleamed below, its skyline illuminated by countless lights. Skyscrapers stretched toward the heavens, interspersed with parks and gardens that glowed softly under the moonlight. Children laughed as they chased fireflies, while couples strolled hand in hand along cobblestone paths. The scene was peaceful, a stark contrast to the devastation that once marred the landscape. As he gazed at the horizon, Daniel felt a sense of fulfillment. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were moments when he doubted whether humanity could prevail. But now, looking at the thriving world around him, he knew they had succeeded, not just in defeating the Empire, but in proving that compassion and cooperation could overcome even the greatest obstacles. Rachel joined him a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Daniel and stood beside him, taking in the view. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "All of it," Daniel nodded. "Yes, it is, and it's only going to get better." They sipped their tea in silence, content in the knowledge that Earth's story was far from over. It was a story of resilience, courage, and hope, a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. As stars twinkled overhead, humanity looked toward the future with optimism, ready to embrace whatever lay beyond. And somewhere, In the quiet corners of memory, Ethan Parker's spirit soared, forever, guiding those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow.